Welcome everyone to a residentially evil episode with Legion Gaming. I'm your host Donnie, and as always I'm joined by my co-host Deucy.
Hello everyone.
And today we are covering a very special game that's celebrating its 24th anniversary, Resident Evil Code Veronica.
Technically only its 6th anniversary.
6th?
Yeah. It's a leap year, baby.
Oh, well, if you're going that technicality, yeah. I guess we'll say that. That's the thing. Here's the fun thing to our listeners is that we've looked it up, and it seems this was released on February 29th, 2000. But it might have also been released on February 3rd, 2000. And there's also a possibility it was released on March 28th, 2000. So this is really... Could be its 6-year anniversary. Maybe it's definitely its 20 or somewhere around there.
24 for sure.
24, excuse me. So it'll be a fun episode. This is one of our favorites. And before we get into that, we usually go through what we've been playing lately. So, Deucy, what's been taking up your time in the gaming world?
Well, I finally did it. You know what I'm going to say.
I know what you're going to say. The 5-hour game has ceased.
Yes, it took 5 weeks, possibly more. Close to the Sun is now over and done with. And I got to say, I have mixed feelings about it.
That's surprising because you were pretty high on the Close to the Sun high horse there.
Yeah, and
you're riding high.
I really enjoy the type of game it is. I do like those walking adventures where you just walk around, pick up notes. I mean, it started with Resident Evil, but there's a lot more danger in Resident Evil. So things like Close to the Sun and Call of the Sea, where you can have puzzles and just learn about the story of the game through whatever you discover.
Yeah, it's more about like environmental storytelling more than anything else.
Yeah, but this one, towards the end, it just kind of seemed a little, I don't know if you'd say rushed, or they didn't fully come together on their ideas of what they wanted. Mm-hmm. I've been talking about that there was time travel elements and stuff like that, and it's not like Singularity where you see those events play out. Like, there's only a hint of it at first, and then you go through it and you do those events, that sort of thing. No, this one is like, you don't have to fight anything. You're just running. You're escaping the bad guy. You're escaping the monster or whatever. And then you get to an escape pod because you're still on that giant ship. And then you escape. And in the meantime, you've made friends with Tesla, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. And he comes over the radio, and it sounds like it's setting it up for a sequel. But to me, like, the sequel would just be the loop of the time travel, and then you're going right back into the first game. I don't know. Obviously, you would have like a different perspective in the second one, but it just it felt very like, oh, that was it.
Yeah, I had read reviews on it, and they seem to be pretty mixed. And I think some of it was revolving around the story, or how it didn't really pay off, or didn't really reach its potential, which is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And it sucks because those walking simulator type games, or those really heavy on storytelling games, like, they really have to pay off with their storytelling because that's why you're playing it. It's a different experience, and you expect something that's a little bit more cohesive than what you're getting. So I'm gonna play it regardless because it's a short game. That's the thing, is with those short games that are like, some of them are as quick as like 2 hours. They go 5, 6. They're fine. Like, if I get a good story out of it, or find time, like, if it's really that bad, I'll just stop playing it, just like anything else,
I still champion the environment that it was set up in. I liked the ideas of the year that it was, this giant ship that was created, a whole like Cold War between Tesla and Edison, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It's just they should have done more.
Yeah, and you might be right. It might be possible. Maybe it had to get rushed towards the end. Who knows what could happen? But it seems unfortunate that you're really hot for a while. Like, they really had you in his grips. And in the end, just kind of fell apart.
There was also one gripe I had with it right at the end. It was in the last level, and it's not on this game specifically, but sort of modern gaming in general, in that it was too damn dark. Mm-hmm. There was a spot where I'm running from a monster, and I died probably 4 or 5 times because I couldn't figure out where to go.
Yeah, because it's just pitch black.
It was. And all it was off to the left. Like, you're running and you think you can crawl under something because in past levels, you've crawled under something to get away from this monster. Instead, there's no prompt. And you're like, well, guess I'll die. And I had to look it up on YouTube really briefly, just that one little section. And on YouTube, that person had their settings even brighter. And they run to that spot, and to the left are like 3 steps. just
weird.
ankle high steps, and all you had to do was turn left and run up those steps, and then you go straight and you're free. And I'm like, I couldn't see that on my TV because I followed their prompt of, like this circle has to be visible, this circle has to be just barely visible, and I did that, and that made things not visible.
I've done that with games before too. They're like, I'll have to look up on YouTube, and then I feel almost like defeated at that point because I'm like, I know it's something stupid because I've been through everything up and down. And I'm gonna be mad regardless. And you get to it, and it's just as stupid as you expect. It's because you didn't look up, you didn't look down, or it was pitch black and you couldn't see anything.
It wasn't even a puzzle. It was like, oh, there's stairs there.
Yeah. The puzzles I can understand. Like looking up, I'm fine with that. But it's like it's dumb when I'm trying to traverse an area, and it's like, oh, I didn't see that hatch that blended in with the ceiling.
Yeah.
What is this, Batman Forever on Super Nintendo? But yeah, that's unfortunate the game didn't pay off the way you had hoped on there.
But it has opened up my time to other things where I've been playing a lot of the games that we're going to talk about this week and next week. And then I also started, it just came out on Game Pass, but I think it was out before that on Steam, called Played Up.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about this one. It's basically like the Overcooked Kitchen Nightmares kind of thing.
Yeah. It's weird. It's not time based like Overcooked, so you don't have that pressure. It's more of there's things that you have to do before certain timers run out. Like you can't leave your guests waiting at their table. You can't leave guests waiting outside to get a table. But you just serve them and you go along, and it's sort of, they describe it as like a roguelike cooking simulator.
Oh, that's pretty funny. Do your shops shut down at the end of each run or something?
Yeah, so you go for as long as you can, day after day, and as you do it, you unlock these upgrades, you unlock new recipes, and then once you fail just one thing, if one customer is unhappy, the whole thing shuts down, which seems odd in real life, but it's kind of funny. And then you go back to base, you pick a new floor plan. It's like a whole new restaurant that you're opening up. And you can even change up your menu, and you just start again with the stuff you've already learned.
Mm-hmm. So it's really just expediting. If you really own a restaurant, failed several times and reopen every time under like a new name.
Yeah, and you've
with what you learned from your previous failures. Yeah.
I'm a better entrepreneur now.
Sounds like a wonderful game to teach you the trials of failure and cooking. It's cool.
Yep.
Yeah. I've been playing, let's see what came out recently. I've been playing a lot of Helldivers 2. Our friend Matt got that, and we've been doing co-op when we can. That game has been a victim of its own success, unfortunately. Like, it's been really hard to get into the servers because they, Helldivers 1, if I recall correctly, like the peak players they had, at least on Steam, was like 7,000 to 10,000. So when they got, 300,000, then 400,000, and eventually like they had to open servers up to 700,000, like they knew they had a pretty big hit on their hands.
Damn.
But it sucks because if the servers are backed up, you have a hard time. You might have a long queue to get in, or you can't get in at all. Luckily, we can get in, but it's such an amazing co-op game. Like, he and I have so many amazing moments in each time because it's just chaotic. Like, the bugs come out of nowhere. We played one mission where we were basically fighting the Terminators. Like, they were invading. You have to escort citizens, but we think that the mission is bugged, pun not intended, because the mission says it's 40 minutes long, but it's actually a 15-minute mission. So we think, and other people think as well, that the AI is thinking that you have to put all of the enemies within that 15-minute window, so it just keeps dumping Terminators like one spawn after another.
Ooh.
It was impossible. And he's got medium, but it was stupid fun. Like, there's just, everything's burning up. Like, there's just chaos everywhere. Like, it's such an amazing game. I hope that maybe you'll get a PS5 or something.
Yeah.
Or we'll get some more people to jump on, because it's a really amazing co-op game. You get a ton of fun.
I've been sold on it based on what you've said. I think they talked about it recently on, what did I see it on? Something else was talking about it recently, and it was just selling me on it more and more. And I was like, yeah, if and when I can get a PlayStation 5 finally, Spider-Man 2 and Helldivers 2 are going to be my first two ones.
They're the first dives for sure. Yeah, and then I've been playing some Mario vs. Donkey Kong on Switch. It's the remake of the original Game Boy Advance game, and that is very much like sort of a spiritual successor to the Donkey Kong 94 game that I played a lot later in life and didn't realize how awesome of a Game Boy game that was.
Yeah.
So the Switch remake, it looks amazing. It's I would say it's on the easy side, which I can't say is a bad thing, but there's sometimes like, yeah, this could be a little bit more difficult. But one thing I wish they would add is like user created levels, like if they have an editor.
Oh.
Because that would be really cool if, you know, the game's like a little bit on the easier side, but if, you know, people make some freaking Mario Maker Kaizo level puzzles. I think that could kind of, you know, kind of lengthen the longevity of the game too.
And you could do it now with the, you know, the power of the Switch and the memory space.
They totally could, because they've, you know, they have Mario Maker 2 on there, so they just have to release an editor, which, you know, I'm sure isn't an easy thing to do, but it'd be really cool if they did something like that.
Yeah.
And then one of the games, I haven't been playing this because it's not out yet, but when this recording hits on Thursday, February 29th, I'm going to be very much anticipating Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which, as of this week, reviews have come out. It looks really amazing, like it's supposed to be. Everything I've read, but essentially says that the Final Fantasy VII Remake looks like sort of a prototype by comparison, because that's a little bit more closed in, because it was, you know, all based in Midgar, so it wasn't as open world. So there's in Rebirth, everything's much more vast, everything's more open, like it's more, you know, because Final Fantasy Remake was technically already it's sort of made for the PS4. This is the first game, at least as far as the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, where they've made it for PS5, so it's probably going to take advantage of it more than anything else. So I'm really excited for that. So by the time this comes out, I'll likely be playing it.
It makes sense. Final Fantasy VII did the same thing. Like, it started out very linear, and then it went into the typical world you're used to in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, like Midgar, granted, was only like, you know, 8 or 9 hours, I think, of the original game. So it was like, you know, not a huge chunk of it, but it was like that. It wasn't so open. It was pretty straightforward until you left Midgar, and then literally the world opened up.
Yeah.
But that's all I've been playing lately. It's been weird. I've been bouncing around between games. I haven't really settled and stuff, but it's been fun just to kind of, you know, see what's been experimenting out. Plus, I've been playing everything else we're going to be talking about. So with that, I think it will be a good segue to start our episode, our main event.
Let's go.
All right, Deucy, we are finally here talking about one of our favorite series, one of our favorite games, Resident Evil Code Veronica, originally released for the Dreamcast. As we mentioned at the top of the show, February 29, 2000 seems to be one of the dates we landed on here.
That's what I'm sticking with.
That's what I'm sticking with, because
it's so unique.
It's perfectly appropriate.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. It fits with the theme here. But also, it could have been released, you know, March 28th. It could have been released February 3rd. We're not totally sure. We just know it came out between February and March.
And to clarify to the listeners, like, this isn't a confusion based on location, where, like, all three of these dates for some reason are for the North American release.
Exactly.
And for some reason they haven't been able to narrow down which one of those it is.
It's really weird. Like, this is one of the few instances where I'll look up a game like, whoa, this says this day, that says that day. Like,
yeah,
where all these, and they'll kind of cite where they get it from, right? Like, I even mentioned to you, there was that Capcom archive site that was like a press release where they mentioned now available, and it said March 28th, 2000. So it's really weird. It's just, it came out, but we're going to land with February 29th because it makes sense to us, and, you know.
Especially for this airing.
Exactly. And for us, it's our podcast, so we're just going to go with February 29th because it makes the most sense. So this game was started development shortly after Resident Evil 2 because Resident Evil 2 was a huge success. And the inception for this kind of started as a result of a failure for a Resident Evil 2 port on Sega Saturn, Deucy. This actually started because they were hoping to port Resident Evil 2 on the Saturn, and turns out that the Saturn just wasn't powerful enough. It just was not a capable 3D system, especially with the amount of zombies that they were scaling up to and to.
I remember a documentary on Saturn. I think it was Saturn versus PlayStation, or it was just about Sega. Mm-hmm. And didn't Saturn 3D development... wasn't it based on like triangles compared to polygons or something like that? It was so unique that a lot of games couldn't be ported over.
Yeah, it was with how I think it rendered polygons or triangles. I forgot what they called, because they weren't called polygons, they weren't called triangles. There was some other triangular term. But the other side is I believe it had two processors, which made it really difficult to program for to begin with. And the Saturn was really but it's more optimized to run 2D games, right? Because you look at the 2D games that are on the Saturn, they look incredible, they run really well, but the 3D games don't perform, in most cases, nearly as well as their PS1 counterparts.
It's weird that, like, Sega just kept doing that. Like, Sega CD came out, and it was just, even 32X, it was just to bolster the 2D games they already had on Genesis. And then Saturn, I don't know, they couldn't get out of that mind space.
Yeah, it was weird. Like Saturn, it's like I love that system, but it sucks because it's such a weird. It's supposed to be a next generation system, but it almost feels like a transitioning kind of system where it's like you said, it does 2D really well, but it wasn't right there for 3D. And PS1 was just powerful enough, more powerful enough to run 3D better. And of course, they had all the developers on there too, which led to its success as well. But the Saturn just struggled. It sucked. Like I really wanted that to succeed, but too many of Sega's failures caught up to them, and then unfortunately they lost out on a port of Resident Evil 2 because Resident Evil 1 was ported on the Saturn. Like it had different soundtrack, I think. It had different graphics, obviously, because of different hardware. But it was pretty close to the PS1 version, so that's why they were, hoping to carry 2 on there. And they were playing at this point when it was RE 1.5, right before they had to redo Resident Evil 2 to make what we got for Resident Evil 2.
That'll be in our Resident Evil 2 episode.
Yeah, inevitably we'll do one of those. Yeah. That's a must. Although I think we just missed the 25th anniversary was last year, I think, already for Resident Evil 2.
No, because wasn't that 90s? Oh, yeah.
I believe it was 98, yeah.
Damn.
So we're 1 year late, but that doesn't mean we won't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially when they realized they couldn't do it on the Saturn, Capcom really wanted Shinji Mikami, who produced this game and he created Resident Evil. They were pushing him to make a new game for the Saturn, like an original IP, because they wanted to show Sega fans that they still loved them. And then Capcom eventually said, well, there's a Dreamcast coming, like maybe that's more tailored to what you need. Like since the Saturn's not powerful enough, we'll get you on the Dreamcast and then you can start developing towards that. And of course that's what, led to this game being successful. And for us was that it looked a lot different than what we were used to, especially coming off of Resident Evil 2 and 3. So this was a totally different experience that they tailored for. And one of the fun things that I had read about here was that Jill was actually intended to be the main character for this, but apparently Hideki Kamiya, he's also, I think he's like an artist or a writer for Capcom. He's done a lot of games. I think he does. He did like God Hand and all these other games on there. But anyway, I guess he had altered one of the final lines in Resident Evil 2 for Claire, where the intent was he intended for her to have like an open cliffhanger. So he said like at the end, like he wanted to make it to where it was opened up, so you could have another side story with her where she was going to look out for Chris. Yeah. And I guess there was actually it was the head writer Sugimura. He was upset that he changed the line last minute. And that resulted,
Did they want Claire to just be a one-off thing?
I think that's what they wanted. Is they wanted Claire's story to sort of end at Resident Evil 2 because they didn't really have plans to, do anything with her. Like, they hoped that Resident Evil 3 was going to be Jill. Because this game, Resident Evil Code Veronica, was supposed to be Resident Evil 3.
Yep.
That was the intent from the beginning, which is really interesting, but...
Until, I think, Sony threw a tantrum. Like, no, we want all the numbered entries.
Well, and that's the thing, is that's been, that's sort of the narrative that's out there, and there's other I think it was Kamiya and Sugimura. They went out there and saying like, no, it's like our intent was to keep the numbered, like they said, like first it was that Sony intended to keep Resident Evil on there, have some sort of limited exclusivity, and then Capcom ended up saying no, like we just wanted the numbered entries on PlayStation, and then all the other games, spin-offs and whatevers, would be named differently. They won't be related to the mainline game. But nonetheless, this ended up, it was supposed to be Resident Evil 3, and it does feel like a Resident Evil 3 because the actual Resident Evil 3 we got, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, feels like a side story, and it really does feel like a side story. Yeah, like, I mean, down to the repetitive environments, like they introduced Nemesis, of course, who's hunting you down the whole game.
It literally takes place like at the same time, the same days as Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like that's the whole thing is like it takes place before, during, and sort of after Resident Evil 2. So this game, like, if anything, the way they spun this is that this was supposed to be a spin-off, Resident Evil Code Veronica. It was Claire going out to find her brother. And this story, I would say this story in this game is a lot different than what we're used to in the previous Resident Evil games.
I enjoy this one because it really does feel like a step forward, like it should.
Yeah.
And it just opened up the literal world to more Resident Evil and, like, showing that it doesn't have to be located just in one Midwestern town. Like, this is going to be a global issue.
Yeah, and that's what they were going for. And like you could tell the tone's really different here. Like this has more of like a Euro Gothic tone versus like American horror. Like, Resident Evil 1 and 2 are really based on like zombies, American cities. And the tone of Resident Evil Code Veronica just feels different. Like you could tell the atmosphere just feels different. Plus the architecture just feels more European. So
yeah.
It feels foreign to what we're used to in the previous games, and that's what they want to do. They want to make a totally different cinematic experience, and you can tell right off the bat, like even with the opening cutscene, that they put in, like it's very John Woo like, with Claire defending herself from being captured in the
Oh,
umbrella,
yeah.
in the umbrella. I think it's like headquarters, or I forgot where she's at.
Yeah, the headquarters in France, I want to say.
Yeah, France. And you know, like she's like, she has her hands up, and then she slow-mo drops her gun, and grabs it while she's on the ground, and shoots the guards, and they capture her. Like it's a huge leap of what I would expect from a Resident Evil sequel, but it always was weird to me that it isn't a Resident Evil sequel technically, right?
Yeah. Some people still don't count it as one, even though we've just gone over how creators have said, yeah, this was the sequel.
Yeah, and it's you know, one of the big things about this game too is the first one to use fully polygonal environments. The earlier Resident Evil games were all pre-rendered backgrounds, so they looked fine at the time. Like I remember they looked great on the TV, but you could definitely tell like everything just looked kind of low quality as far as backgrounds. Like some of the artifacting would look really weird or like kind of blurry.
It really stands out now when you play it on HD TVs,
especially, right? Yeah. So this game, they were making a huge deal about how everything was 3D. Like the camera was a little bit more dynamic, and then their big thing was, you know, the cutscene polygon counts were up to 2,500. Now that sounds like it's really small because it is, but in 1999, that was a pretty big leap as far as graphical quality, because also meant you could have, you know, finer details show up. Like everything just looked cleaner. And for fun, I looked it up. I was just curious, like, what polygon counts are now. So I was looking up, and in Resident Evil 8 Village, Lady Dimitrescu, she has somewhere around 300,000 polygons just on her character model.
Yikes!
Right. So
wait. So the 2,500 was for the entire
cutscene. So what you're looking at, like, if you're looking at Claire's face cropped up on the screen, that's made up of 2,500 polygons total, like that screen. Whereas Lady Dimitrescu is 300,000 just for her model. So you can, you know, just think of like the graphical fidelity leap just on those numbers: 2,500 to 300,000 for a character model versus 2,500 for a scene that you're watching
for the entire thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but nonetheless, in 2000, it looked amazing, because that's what's immediately striking when I was seeing this in magazines. You know, besides the fact that we were huge Resident Evil fans, that's what struck us, is how good this game looked on the Dreamcast. Mm-hmm. And I know you never got a Dreamcast, Deucy, but that, I mean, I already was sold on one before, and knowing Code Veronica was coming just made me that much more excited to have one.
Yeah, I had seen the writing on it and everything, probably from magazines that you had, because Nintendo Power wasn't about to cover that.
That's true, yeah.
But it still didn't sell me on the Dreamcast. I was just like, no, I think this is gonna get ported at some point.
Well, and to be fair, the other side of things too is like we were, you know, what was it, 14, 15-ish? It's not like now we're adults, so like, all right, we'll put some money or whatever, and then we'll get a console or something, right? Back then, it's like you had to be selective of what you bought, because you knew that
was a lot of allowance.
It was. Like, I think the Dreamcast launched at 200 or 250. Like that's a lot of money when you're 14 years old and you're getting, you know, a couple bucks a week or whatever it is, and then you have to convince your parents, like, yeah, I really need a new console. It's like, well, what about your PS1? What about your Super Nintendo? You know?
The other 5 that
just
you already
have.
have.
Just go down the line. Your Game Boy, your Game Gear. So that's kind of the trade-off. So it's like, yeah, it's like I understood why you didn't want a Dreamcast, because also like, I had one, and you're like, yeah, there's really not that many games, so I'll just play to your house. And that's what ended up happening.
Yep.
And it's fun because Capcom had hoped to sell this to about 1/3 of all Dreamcast owners, and at the time that would have been about 1 million, which is, you know, it's a pretty respectable number, like, you know, for that time, I would say. But unfortunately, with the Dreamcast sort of challenges, it just didn't happen. Like, this game sold well, but it didn't reach any of the expectations that they had hoped for it.
It's going to be repeated in a couple years when the Resident Evil remake hits GameCube, and that was an amazing remake, an amazing game, and it didn't reach their numbers only because of the fact that it was on GameCube.
Yeah, like, that one is particularly mind-blowing, that I didn't realize how unsuccessful it was, and it kills me that it was unsuccessful at that time.
Yeah.
So with that, this game was supposed to release with the Dreamcast in 1999, but there was too many delays, and ultimately that led Capcom to releasing a Dreamcast port of Resident Evil 2 on the Dreamcast called Biohazard 2 Value Plus. And the big thing with this is that it included a demo of Code Veronica, because that's the thing, is that, you know, they had all this hype for Code Veronica, and they wanted to keep the hype top of mind, and, you know, the Dreamcast was kind of struggling sort of right out the gate. Like, it was doing well enough, but you could tell like the momentum wasn't quite there yet. Like, I think it was EGM I was looking at, like there was one of the issues where they were talking about how like Sega with the launch of the Dreamcast is hoping to turn everything around, because perception on Sega was poor, because this was shortly after the Saturn and their other failings, and the Dreamcast really needed to do well to keep Sega afloat. And we would learn, as history tells us, a couple years later it just wasn't enough, and they totally got out of the console market.
Wasn't the PlayStation 2 at least announced by the time that...
There were, so I think in 99 there was like rumors of PS2, and then in 2000s is really when I recall like all the previews and all the screenshots coming up. Like that's when the hype started to swell for the PS2 because they knew it was coming at some point. And 2000 is probably when more was being revealed, especially like with E3 and all that at that time.
Oh yeah.
So this would have released later on, and it sold about 1 million copies on the Dreamcast, which it's pretty good considering the Dreamcast didn't have a huge install base. And then we'll get into it a little bit later as well because it's a huge piece of this sort of Code Veronica saga about Code Veronica X, because that would be on PS2 and unironically be more successful because they had a bigger install base, but it still didn't sell as well as you'd expect. So I guess Deucy, should we get into your first impressions about what you felt like with this game, like how you heard of it at the time, when you played it? I know you borrowed my Dreamcast, which will be a fun topic to cover.
Yeah. Like I said, it didn't sell me on the Dreamcast. I was more just annoyed that it was Dreamcast only. But I wasn't going to go out of my way to get it. I was like, I'm gonna find a way to play this, and I believe as soon as you got it, then I went over to your house and watched you play it. I don't even remember if we switched off back and forth. I just might have just watched you play it, and like maybe I was the co-pilot with the strategy guide, saying, "Here, go here next, go here next."
I'm just trying to remember if I got the strategy guide and release, because I know they do that with Electronics Boutique when they would have the offer. It's like you buy the game and you get like 15% off the guide.
They had great deals back then.
It was
strategy
an amazing
guides.
time. Oh my god, I got so many guys just on that offer, and then they always not con me into it because I was already halfway over the line about buying it. But you're like, 20% off. Sure.
And
I don't know if I need this.
Back then, you really kind of needed them.
Yeah, because this was still early internet, so we had GameFAQs, but no one's really going to have, unless they play the Japanese version, a full walkthrough, translated walkthrough of Resident Evil Code Veronica, like in the first few months.
Definitely no videos on YouTube.
Oh, definitely not the case.
No YouTube.
Maybe videos on GameShark.com. I do remember going on there for like the Onimusha. There was that sliding puzzle. I remember going on there and seeing a flash animation on how to solve it because it took me forever. So there's that.
How long did that take you to load on?
Probably a while.
On the internet just to see that.
I don't think DSL back then. I think that was still dial-up.
I need 7 seconds of a clip. I gotta wait 4 hours.
Yeah, I'm gonna go upstairs and do another 4 attempts while this loads. Before I get the actual solution here. So on this release, Deucy, there's a lot that came out around this time. There was between February and April 2000. I kind of do like that 3-month range. There was Vagrant Story on PS1, which is a pretty awesome RPG. There's Pokemon Stadium, which was a huge game, at least for me. And I know for most people on N64.
That was wasn't it one of the top 5 sellers of N64?
It was top 5 or definitely top 10, maybe top 5.
Yeah.
For good reason, because I mean that was at the height of Pokemania, and like one gimmick I remember with that was going to Blockbuster and you would take your cart or your transfer pack, and you could put it in a machine and it would print out stickers for the photos you took of your Pokemon in Pokemon 64.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you ever got to do that kiosk.
Nope. Because
really
I never had Stadium and I never got the transfer pack.
Oh, maybe you borrowed it. I thought you did for some reason.
No, I think I borrowed it from you, and I do remember borrowing the transfer pack because I had Pokemon Yellow at the time, and I put my guys into the system.
Yeah.
That's really why it was so huge, was at the time that was the first 3D iteration of Pokemon.
It was the only way you could see your Pokemon 3D, and it was really freaking cool with the mini games. And it even had like that Super Game Boy mode where you could, like you said, you could put your Pokemon Yellow, Red, or Blue and play it on the screen.
Yeah.
So nonetheless, huge release. And there's also Rayman 2, The Great Escape for Dreamcast, a great platformer. Sword of the Berserk, Guts' Rage. Dead or Alive 2, The Sims is from 2000. Can you believe that game is 24 years old?
Yep.
It's like I remember playing it back then, but I didn't really click that it was that old, Like I don't know why Sims in 2000 didn't click with me.
I remember we didn't get a home computer until pretty late. Like I think I might have been in 8th grade. But I do remember shortly after that, we had SimCity 3000, and then all of a sudden we got the Sims on a whim, and it was game over there. Like my mom got every expansion pack.
I remember her being addicted to that. That's
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I would play it, and it just took over our house for the longest time.
That'd be a pretty fun one to cover. Maybe just like do maybe a mini episode, or I don't know. That'd be a fun one because we did sink in a lot of time on the GameCube one with co-op somehow. That was like 6 hours went by that one day.
Yeah, that was you blink and the day was over.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta go home now, I guess. And a couple other releases I want to mention. There's Warrior Land 3 on Game Boy Color, which is a fantastic, I would say, overlooked Game Boy Color game. Kirby 64, MDK2, Zelda Majora's Mask, and Star Wars Episode 1 Racer for the N64. So a lot of good happening in those.
Wow,
3
Majora's
months.
Mask.
Yeah, it's that's considered like a later, N64 release. But yeah, 2000. I don't know why I don't connect that either.
But also, it's kind of surprising that it was early in the year.
Yeah, early. Yeah, because usually we expect that to be like a holiday release or something.
Yeah.
So with Code Veronica, we got a couple of we got through. Let's see, we got GamePro and EGM. So in GamePro, Deucy, issue 140, it was the cover story for the May 2000 issue. The review here gave it, let's see, graphics got 4.5, sound got 4.5, control of 4, fun factor 4. For them, like they noticed on the sound, they said that the only distraction they noticed were some of the annoying voices, which I can see. There's some annoying voice acting in here. Some of it doesn't age well either, I would say. And they thought that the auto aiming was kind of flaky, and it doesn't reach the high standards set for the series, which I don't really agree with.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So this reviewer said that this Code Veronica doesn't reach the high standards that the series set for itself, which I find to be kind of silly because this pushed the series forward.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
The environments were now 3D. The camera could have more freedom for more action.
Yeah, it wasn't so static. It would move around. Like, it still have those static angles, but there's a lot more movement.
The voice acting, like, the lines are delivered well, much better than 1 and even 2. It's just like they said, the voices, they could have gotten better voices. But, like, if you're going to take that into account, then it's still on par. It's not that it's not reaching the levels. It's basically,
I would say it's iterating on what it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the whole thing, is that this is what I would expect in a sequel, or what was supposed to be a sequel. Because I think at the time I thought this was the sequel, even though we had 3 as it numbered. But this felt more of like a meteor sequel.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to read that they thought it didn't reach the high standards. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I think they tried to improve on everything in this game, like
there was
across the slate here.
One of my favorite parts was the dual wielding machine guns.
Yeah.
That you could now aim in 2 different directions.
And they had these small quality of life changes where you can now lock pick whether your inventory is full, and you can use an herb if your inventory is full.
Yeah.
So if you went to an herb and your inventory is full, you could just use it right then and there if you need it, which is a common thing nowadays. But back then, you have no idea how that was. It's like, and you couldn't drop items either.
That was groundbreaking.
Yeah, so it's like if you saw an herb, you almost had to make the decision like, all right, well, do I go back to the item box to drop some stuff off and hope I don't get killed on the way, or do I, use the herb or whatever? So the fact that you can use the herb right then and there without having to manage inventory, that's a huge step forward alone.
I was sad, though. They've improved on that further in later games, but in this one, I thought maybe you could also combine, because I played it recently, and like, my inventory's full. I have a red herb. I find a green, but I couldn't just combine it. It could either use the green alone or go and do the inventory management, like you said.
Yeah.
Whereas later on in 4 and 5, if you pick one up and something's already in your inventory, you can immediately combine it and that sort of thing.
And you have different potency with that too. I think that was the other thing, is like, it would open up options for that. And then you're, again, like, the less inventory management you have to do, the better. That's with any game, really. Because that could be a nightmare, especially in this game when you have 6 slots to start out. Not much. 6 to 8.
Yeah, I believe it's that much.
Yeah, if it's not 8, it's 6, and if it's not 6, it's 8.
But you do get a few more inventory upgrades than you do in like Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So overall, like, they love the game. Like, they thought the graphics were definitely amazing, the improved camera, but they thought that the wow factor wore off after you get over the graphics, which, again, I totally disagree with. I think it's so dumb to say that. And on the Dreamcast, like, this is a great looking Dreamcast game on top of it. You know? So it's a little weird that the reviewer, like, they gave it great scores because those were all out of 5, but they weren't so hot on the game itself. EGM reviewed it. They love this game. It was in issue 131, June 2000. It had Sonic cover. And this is the issue I was telling you about, where, the main cover story was about how Sega strikes back, because, again, like, this is coming off the 32X and the Saturn, and now they're putting all their eggs in the Dreamcast basket. And, frankly, like, the Dreamcast basket looked really good. Like, I was really excited for what they were going to bring, but, this was more like a preview issue, like, showing all the games that were coming out, all the developers got on board. It was really great for them to talk positively about Sega, right?
It was technically the first of the next generation.
It really was. And it felt like a good leap. Like, it was a pretty big leap from PS1 to Dreamcast, I would say. And then the review scores for this were really good. They gave it a 10, a 9.5, and a 9.5. They thought the best feature were the incredible graphics. The worst feature, sappy love plot. I can agree with that. Like,
yeah,
the love plot is here between Steve and Claire, and it's totally just...
It's forced faster than Titanic.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, so much so that Steve Burnside looks like Leo DiCaprio in one of the earlier games. And then I also want to point out too that Worst People Savvy Love Pot, excuse me. And their thing was they highlighted the atmosphere, the puzzles, the intense action, and they love the vintage RE gameplay, believe it or not. So GamePro was like, we feel like they didn't advance enough, and EGM's like, no, give us more. We need more of this. And they really thought it was the best game in the series, and they also praised that it took them nearly 15 hours on average to complete, which is a big thing we'll talk about too. Like, that's a pretty lengthy RE game by standards. Even today's standards, it's really long.
Well, not compared to our playthroughs of RE4.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I did for yours especially. Yeah.
Mine was two Code Veronicas here.
Yeah, that's right. And the only other negatives they really talked about was the high difficulty and how it's possible to totally screw yourself later in the game.
Oh, they even noticed that, huh?
Yeah, so both completely agree. And then one thing I should mention too is like that was, this game is noteworthy for being very difficult and landing you in situations where if you're not careful, you're screwed. Because you do have limited saves with your ink ribbons, and if you're not careful about where you save and how you save and what resources you have, you can really screw up your game where like you're basically screwed. That happened to me, which we'll talk about later. And also I want to note too, I want to give one plug to a book that Deuce and I both enjoy. It's called Itchy Tasty, An Official History of Resident Evil by Alex Anil. This is on Amazon for $27 hardback. You get the paperback for $14, and the Kindle version is like $10.
Oh, they got paperback now.
They got paperback now, yeah.
Nice.
We got the OG hardcover because we just, as soon as we saw the Kickstarter, we pledged, $20 where it was. But it's a great book. He goes through pretty much all the games up until about 4, and he does a lot, has a lot of developer reviews, a lot of details that you would normally expect. So some of the stuff that we'll cover in this episode is from his book, as well as, of course, like Wikipedia and magazines. But I want to give a shout out to him because that book is really excellent. I read right through it. It's a really fun read for any Resident Evil fan. But getting back to, EGM, one thing I want to point out, because another cover story issue the other cover story on this was Perfect Dark, which was a big game for us, Deucy, and then Metal Gear for Game Boy Color. So the review scores for Perfect Dark, just to give some context against Resident Evil Code Veronica, Perfect Dark got a 10, and 9.5. And then Metal Gear Solid Game Boy Color, one of my favorite Game Boy Color games and one of my favorite Metal Gear games, 10, 10, and 9. So great month, I would say, right? Code Veronica and Perfect Dark. And I mean, you got your portable covered, you got PS1, Dreamcast, and 64. We were doing pretty good in the beginning of 2000 with those games, right?
This is another reason probably why I didn't care about not having a Dreamcast. Was Perfect Dark came out, and I was so sidetracked with that. I spent so many hours, especially into the multiplayer. Yeah,
we come up with custom games, like all these different game types. I mean, we played 4-player on that all the time. Like that was 15 frames per second of pure heaven.
Yeah,
that was back then. Maybe 10. I don't know how bad it got.
That's only if you used all the Sims.
Yeah. So needless to say, like between all of us, like all the games we got through our allowances, whatever else, we were having a great time. Like we had Resident Evil, we had Perfect Dark, and then we were playing Metal Gear portably, which that Metal Gear game is fantastic. If you haven't played it, like don't kind of dismiss it because it's a Game Boy Color game.
That's like the ultimate hidden gem.
It really is. It's up there for me. Unfortunately, very expensive, so I would say definitely go ahead and emulate it if you want to, because it's a worthwhile experience.
Yeah.
So I guess we get into like the story bits and the main meat of the game, Deucy. Should we kick off the story here? We'll go into this here. Okay, so the story, Deucy, this one takes place 3 months after basically Resident Evil 2. Like Raccoon City has been destroyed. Claire at this point is searching for her brother. And then she ends up going to a Umbrella-owned facility in Paris where she's, found by those guards we were talking about earlier, and like this whole shootout, and she's taken prisoner to Rockford Island, and that's where you start the game, is in Rockford Island. You're in prison, and then what happens is that there's an air raid that happens just out of nowhere. Of course, you're in prison. And then the guy who's keeping you captive, his name is Rodrigo. He lets you out because he basically realizes like that's we're basically dead,
and we're on an island. Where are you gonna go?
Exactly, we're on an island. God knows where. I think it's off the Antarctic, somewhere around there, right? And
it's somewhere in the Atlantic at least.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So she's stuck on an island, and then what happens when this air raid occurs is it accidentally releases some bioorganic weapons that are in the facility, because this ends up being an Umbrella facility more or less.
Yeah, it's training. I want to say it's training their upper crust, office people, and also their own like private military.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and a lot of people bring experimented on, and then what ends up happening is the T-virus gets released, and now a lot of the island's inhabitants are turned into zombies. And there's a graveyard, interestingly enough, right outside the prison, which kind of, I guess, would lead you to believe that there's a lot of experimentation going on, because it's like you're on an island. There's prisoners here. Why there's so many graves?
But also, why are they marking it with gravestones?
That's true too. That's true too. Yeah, and of course, you're escaping the prison, and then there's zombies coming out from everywhere, and immediately, like I replayed some of this before we started the podcast this week, and I recognize so many areas, especially in the beginning, just because I remember vividly playing this and like just getting so far into it and just being totally immersed. And it's immediately apparent how hard the game is right off the bat because you only have like your lighter. It takes a little while before you can get your gun even. Like you really only have your knife.
Yeah.
And you're trying to avoid zombies more than anything else. So immediately this game's like trying to test you on what you've known from Resident Evil 1 and 2 and say, forget all that. This is infinitely harder.
I played it again recently on the Xbox version, and I'm thankful for having the Xbox controller now compared to the old flimsy stick Dreamcast.
Yeah.
But I was surprised. I surprised myself after playing Resident Evil 4 for so much last year that I got right back into the tank controls of this version, and I wasn't dodging zombies as easily as I did when we were kids, but I was able to survive. And I don't have the strategy guide anymore. Like I know I borrowed yours a ton, so I was impressed that I remembered so much about what I had to get and where I needed to go and what I needed to keep with me or drop off in a box somewhere.
Yeah.
And there was at one point I was looking at the map and I was like, well, I have to get over to this one room, but there's this other locked area that's now become unlocked. I could open that up and go through it real quick, or I could just sprint to the room I need to go to. Luckily, I stopped and I did that one other thing because that had a key item in it, which I would have been screwed if I had raced all the way over to the thing and gone, oh, I have to go back anyway.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned it because that's how I felt like even when I played it now. Because I don't remember the last time I played this. It must have been like when it first released. So I played the Resident Evil Code Veronica X HD edition that you can get on Series X, Xbox One, like it's backwards compatible. And I must have not played that in like the last 10 years. And then before that was, 10 years previous to that, probably on PS2 and Dreamcast, right? So it's like 20 years yet. Despite not playing it that frequently, like everything did feel like it was like a glove. Like I had to get, it was like a little bit of shaking the rust off for the tank controls, but it still felt good.
Yeah.
Like I was going through the games like, this feels right so far, and like I almost ran that same issue where it's like I almost forget a key item, or you can almost forget the SMGs in the beginning of the game too, if you're not careful. And those things are useful because in this game it's pretty cool. Claire can aim at 2 different zombies at once, like it's auto aim, and you can shoot them. Granted, it's an SMG, so it's kind of inaccurate, but that's fine. That keeps them off you. That's all that really matters. So it's interesting that, again, like this is like muscle memory, but it's weird. It's not like muscle we've used, right, for this game in at least a decade, if not longer.
And I definitely didn't play this one as much as Resident Evil 2, so I'm still foggy on a lot of the locations because back then I was just sort of reading it from the book and doing what they say.
Yeah.
Whereas other games I kind of had to learn for myself. But I do see early on how this game was so difficult because I'm already running low on ammo for the SMGs and the pistol. And even I've been using the crossbow, which is very ineffective in this game. But I mean, I've had to resort to it. I had 120 arrows. They want me to use it on something. But I'm running low on everything except the arrows. And I'm like, this isn't like the modern games where the game will sense how you're playing and it'll start giving you random drops to keep you going. This had preset ammo.
Yeah, they were static drops
in locations, and like you just got to deal with what they give you.
And that's what is really cool about this game. It's also kind of a judgment if you're not used to that type of game, because I mean this is indicative of a lot of games from that era and even before this, where you have your static items, and that's why it's like a lot of trial and error and also memorization, where it's like you know what's coming up as far as enemies, you know what you might need, and you know where to get certain items. And it's really cool because it also forces you to play in such a way that you're more defensive just by nature, because you're also scared as hell, because it's like you could up in a poor situation real quick because you don't know what's coming up and you know what resources you have left and you know how hard to get. So I think from that, it's really successful of also advancing literal survival horror with Code Veronica, like the step they're trying to take. Because again, with the Dreamcast hardware, now they can have more zombies on the screen at once, there's more complex AI. Everything is just more advanced, and it's also, the puzzles are definitely more difficult in some instances too. And on top of that, like, there's a lot of instances where you feel like you're up against a wall, sometimes literally.
Literally.
Right?
I did find one problem with the auto aim in this though. There was a section because the cameras, are fixed angle, so you can't see what is shuffling towards you. You can hear it, and you kind of rely on the auto aim to point you in that direction, and you just start firing away. Although in this one, there was a section where I couldn't see it, and the zombie was behind a wall, but there was an open door, so he would eventually shuffle into that open door and into the room that I'm in. It was still auto-aiming when he was behind the wall.
Yeah.
And I was wasting bullets on the wall.
Well, and that's what one of the reviews said, or like gameplay even said, like the auto aim is kind of flaky, which it is. I think that's just an unfortunate byproduct of what they did. And also, like, I'd imagine when they're doing with the SMGs auto aiming too, like that probably makes it go funky too.
Yeah.
Like, and also maybe like the more complex environments just make it a lot harder to auto aim. But I found myself doing the same thing. It's like that's how kind of get a feel for where enemies are. It's like sometimes like, oh, I'm shooting at nothing, but I hear them.
Yeah.
So in the story, we'll get back to the story because I think this is like one of the big points of the game, especially with this one, is the story is a little bit more fleshed out. I would say it has a lot of moving pieces on with it. So
like I said, it really pushes the universe forward.
it really does, and I think it's really successful for it. So later on in the game, as Claire, you meet Steve Burnside, who's a prisoner on the island because his father, who ends up getting zombified later, his father was caught stealing Umbrella secrets, and then as a result, Umbrella imprisoned him and his dad, and they killed his mother. And then their whole thing is they team up to try to escape the island. And then this is where you meet one of the big characters in this game. That's Alfred Ashford, who they're the family that first appears in this game. You never hear about the Ashfords until now, and they make a pretty big splash in the story. Like they're pretty significant in the realm of this game, right?
Yeah, they're one of the 3 founding families of Umbrella. I think it was Spencer, Ashford, and I forgot the third.
I can't remember either. But anyway, yeah. It's the Ashfords, Spencer, and some other person that's also involved with sort of the creation of Umbrella and the T-Virus and everything else. So Alfred, and he has a twin sister named Alexia. They were genetically engineered children of Veronica Ashford. And then their father was a geneticist named Alexander Ashford, and he oversaw Umbrella's prisoners on the island. So this is sort of like the family island, like the family plot.
Yeah, they have a castle and everything.
They have a castle. So it makes sense, again, when you see that graveyard, like it makes perfect sense that those are probably people they experimented on, because this is, an island that's owned by Umbrella. They're hoping to, genetically make a virus, or excuse me, genetically, I can't even say the freaking word. They want to make a virus.
Genetically engineer not just the virus, but like the people in general.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're trying to create monsters, and it's a freaking nightmare on there. So the twins were split up based on their intelligence, and Alexia was considered sort of the genius of the two. So she definitely got all the attention. The whole idea with the 2 children was that the Ashfords wanted to make sure that the Ashford name was still connected and had influence over Umbrella Pharmaceuticals. So they knew that by basically using Veronica's DNA. Yeah.
It was kind of rude. Like the family knew that their dad was kind of a dolt. Like he didn't have the business sense. He didn't have the balls, you could say, to research and do these horrendous things. So they went ahead and they took like Veronica's brains and forward thinking and just put it into the kids.
They really did.
We're going to skip a generation here.
Yeah. Yeah. So Alfred is the one who isn't the bright one. He's sort of like I guess we'll kind of make an analogy to twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, where Alexia is probably Arnold Schwarzenegger in this instance, where she's just, the brilliant mind, and then, Alfred kind of got the bad genes. Like he's not so well liked. He's not quite exiled from the family. Like he's just there. But what ends up happening is they find out that they were genetically engineered, and they experiment with the T Veronica virus, as it's called in here, with their father. So Alexander Ashford is now injected with the T virus, or the T Veronica virus. And later on, you fight him as another terrifying boss, as Nosferatu, who's this crazy, like, I don't know, he's a man who's bound, with his hands bound behind him. He's blinded. He has like a blindfold on. His chest has like an exposed heart thing, and he's got like these, what would you call them? Like Doc Ock kind of arms sprawling from him.
Yeah, he's got really long. It's not even tentacles because they're hard.
Yeah,
they kind of look like Spider-Man's arms that Tony Stark gave him.
The Iron Spire.
Yeah,
there you go, something like that. Yeah. So then after they do that, Alexia ends up injecting herself with the T Veronica virus because she wants to become a superior being, based on the findings from when she experimented on her father.
Yeah, they noticed, oh, that went poorly. We're gonna try again. but they're going to use cryostasis to let it like simmer.
Exactly. And the idea is that when cryostasis for at least 15 years, I don't know how they came to that date, but the idea is that in cryostasis, the virus would not destroy her tissue. It would be, she would get all the benefits without all the bad stuff on there.
Yeah.
So when that ends up happening, Alfred is sort of the only person in the family on the island, and his mind basically snaps.
He goes full Bates on this one.
He goes full Norman Bates on here because you encounter both Alfred and Alexia. And you find out later in the game that Alfred has been posing as Alexia, literally as a split personality. Like, when he's Alexia, he is Alexia, and you assume that she's still alive because to the common world, you know, all the kids are dead, like they don't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. So this island is that much remote where the asteroids run it, and they don't know that Alfred is on there just having fun with his experiments, all of his bioorganic weapons. He's sort of impersonating his sister, and that's really at the core of this story is family, which is a much different, sort of tone than what the original games had. Like, this is a much more familiar in tone, and they really want to push the idea of family and your genetics passing down.
Yeah, I mean, your heroes in this are brother and sister, and they're going up against the bad brother and sister. It's sort of like a nature versus nurture type thing.
It is.
Like who's good based on how they were raised.
Yeah, and it's really cool because, again, like, this is such a deeper story than what we've been used to. Like, not to denigrate Resident Evil 2 or 1, because we definitely love those games, but this really felt like they were trying to be, again, more cinematic, much more mature with the story. Like, it felt like they had the budget now to do what they wanted to create a much grander story. And that aided the game, too, because now you have multiple locations. Like, eventually you go to Antarctica, and you go on a base there, and then Chris ends up making an appearance again. You play as him. And I found out that was their twist on the zapping system for Resident Evil 2, where Resident Evil 2, right, had events that were kind of concurrent but split, with the A and B scenarios. This, they made it so that events are happening sort of in parallel, but also intersecting and then joining together, which I never really connected before, but it makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's like, Chris shows up to the island right after Claire leaves.
Yeah, because he discovers that she's been captured. So he's like, oh, I'm going to go rescue my sister. And he arrives at the island just as she leaves, because her and Steve end up getting on a plane from the airstrip that's on Rockford Island, and they try to leave. They try to escape, and they end up landing in Antarctica. And at that point, that's when Chris shows up, and you're like, oh, Chris is back. We haven't seen him in like 2 games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you keep hearing about him. Like, she's looking for him. Jill mentions him a lot in Resident Evil 3. And then finally he comes back. This was the first time since the first game.
And it was a really cool moment, too.
Yeah. And he brings along with him somebody that hasn't been seen since the first game.
Shockingly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're like, how in the hell is he here?
Yeah. So what Deucy's alluding to here is that you're shocked and appalled when you find out that Wesker, who was, impaled by a tyrant in Resident Evil 1, he's back and he's alive. And in Code Veronica X, as we'll talk about, has like superhuman strength and powers now.
That was badass.
That was amazing and badass. Yeah. And so Chris is like, what are you doing here, Wesker?
Yeah. Ah, crap.
Yeah. And of course, Wesker's here for his own motives. He's here to get the T Veronica virus and bring it back to Umbrella. And then, there's a lot of that unfolds over the story. It's there's a lot of YouTube recaps that do it. But for us, we're going to kind of go through some of the key beats on this. So eventually, Claire and Chris do reunite. So it's a big moment that they're finally back together after all this time. Like, Claire was going to Raccoon City to find Chris. Now it's the reverse. Chris is trying to find Claire, and they finally get to find each other. And then what ends up happening is they end up encountering Alexia, and there's Wesker as well. And then Steve ends up getting infected with the virus, trying to save Claire. And he turns into like this crazy, not quite tyrant boss, but like this, I don't know what you call him, like green mutant looking thing.
I mean, it's kind of like
it's like a Birkin form.
It's like what their dad became, but like the early stages, because it's so new.
Yeah, so he mutates immediately, and in his last gasp, before he dies, basically he professes his love to Claire, which is a little bit cheesy and sappy.
Yeah.
But it's fine. Like, it doesn't really add much to the story. It's just there to add more drama that kind of falls flat.
I was watching a playthrough of this, and it was a group of people playing it, and they were like, you just said I love you?
Yeah.
A day hasn't even passed. Yeah. What are you doing?
They've been through a lot, okay?
Yeah.
So then, so Steve dies, and that allows Claire and Chris to survive, and now Chris fights a resurrected Alexia, and they end up, in this Umbrella. I guess it's like they're one of the labs again. Like, it's sort of an underground lab in Antarctica.
I mean, it's so fitting. Like, this time, the 2000s, was all about like movies and sci-fi going to Antarctica for things. Like
It was.
this is the undiscovered continent that we have. There's got to be some shady stuff going on down there.
It's remote. No one would be there. It's Antarctica, and then of course Umbrella has a base on there. Just
And also,
underground.
everybody's walking around in t-shirts still, though.
That's true too. Like she's not quite like ridiculous.
At least
fantasy armor, just skimpy armor, but she's not exactly bundled up for the Antarctic.
At least Lara Croft put on a parka.
Yeah, but her legs were just there. I guess. Yeah. So when you're there, when you're in the facility, you fight Alexia and you arm the self-destruct sequence, and then at the end of the game, that's when the base explodes. Like you finally escape, and then Wesker is seen. He's based in the original version, he's seen taking Steve's corpse because it has the T Veronica virus, and they're going to experiment on it. So awesome story from beginning. Like I was hooked the entire time despite the game's difficulty. But, it was definitely a fun story to all throughout. Like, there wasn't anything I would say kind of drags. Like, everything I thought was paced well. Again, it's a much more mature story and a much more, I would say, like, well-executed story overall, right?
This really set up Wesker as the main bad guy, and he's going around collecting viruses like Thanos.
He really is.
He's got T, G, T Veronica. He gets the one that's in 4. He finishes it off with the one that's in 5, and he just becomes this crazy super monster with like almost everything going through him at once.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you would not, we would have never expected that. We didn't expect that
back
then.
Yeah,
like, we thought Wesker was dead. We didn't think that they would ever bring characters back. It wasn't a common thing because again, like at this point too, storytelling in games, it wasn't brand new, but this sort of method of storytelling is new, right? Because there's Resident Evil 1, 2, and then Metal Gear Solid influenced a lot on PS1.
Oh yeah,
right. And this, I definitely would say that probably in some way influenced Resident Evil Code Veronica. So it's the newest storytelling. So we would never expect a twist like that where Wesker's back, and not only that, he's superhuman now. Like he has some form of the virus where it's not killing or transforming him. He just has all the benefits.
Yeah,
essentially what Alexia was going for, but Wesker has it already.
Yeah, I don't remember if they ever explained what he had.
They might have later. I can't fully recall because, the story gets so crazy after that, especially with like 4 or 5 and etc. But yeah, it's whatever happened. At the same time, you're also like, I don't care. He's awesome.
Yeah.
This works. It shouldn't work, but it works, And then, so that was the main Dreamcast game. And, again, it was an amazing time for me. I loved it. I will say I didn't beat it back then. Nope. I was at the last boss, and this is where the instance where I was saying I got totally screwed at the end. I had, if I recall correctly, I had 1 aid spray, which refills your health from red or from danger, right?
Yeah, max refill.
Max your refill. I had 2, the dual SMGs with Chris, and the knife. I think that's all I had. And the final Alexia boss, like she's like molded to this wall kind of thing, and she has all these attacks that are like area of effect attacks. Like she's just really difficult. She has long reaching attacks. I was done. Like I could not beat the game at that point.
I want to say that's only her first form, doesn't she? She breaks free and like flies around at one point.
Yeah, and I could get there. I could get to that point, but it's like with the knife. If you're down to the knife, like you can't really swat at the air that well, So I warned my brother when that happened because he's also been watching me, but he was also like a little bit behind. I was like, don't do what I did. Save several times. Make sure you have a lot of supplies because for some reason, like, I think it was a mix of I didn't anticipate the end coming. And also the fact that you're just low on resources in this game. Like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, like it's hard to plan for something you don't realize. And then you have limited saves and it's like, I don't know what I did, but I was like, I don't know if I had one save file or if I had, save files that were too spread out and I just never bothered to go through them.
Yeah.
So I did get to see the end of the game once my brother beat it because, I gave him the knowledge and the wisdom and he was able to beat it.
And then I got to see the end of the game when either you beat it or you played his save file and beat it.
I probably played his, or maybe I beat it again. I don't remember what I did. I know that first shot I definitely did, and it was a struggle. It was hard to get there.
It was a chain of ending viewings.
It was, and there was a lot of unlockables in this game too, which is really cool. Like they had the unlimited rocket launcher. You can unlock battle mode, which is sort of like a primitive version of Mercenaries, where you could select different characters, including Wesker, and go through like this time trial of destroying enemies and progressing through the game. I don't remember if you can unlock more stuff with that, but you could get like different ranks, and then you could get the unlimited rocket launcher and some other weapons.
There were probably some what do you call it? Costume changes, weren't there?
There was a few costumes you can unlock.
Yeah.
There's also a first person mode, which I remember unlocking. It was really weird. Yeah, so well before Resident Evil 7, you could do first person in this game, and like
well before Resident Evil Survivor 2.
Survivor 2, yeah.
which was Code Veronica, but poorly.
Yeah, and I think that was like a Lycan game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so it didn't do well either. But yeah, it was really weird to play Resident Evil first person because it was just that. Like, there's no, I think you could see their arms when they shoot or something. It was just a first person view of Resident Evil, but it was only, I think it was limited to the battle mode. I can't remember if you could use it in the main game.
And wasn't it still tank controls?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I mean, that makes sense.
It's like playing RoboCop.
But like, you had to stop and turn. You couldn't like smoothly transition.
yeah. And then eventually, less than a year later, so this game didn't sell as well as Capcom had hoped, and a lot of that was because there wasn't a lot of Dreamcasts out there. I think there was like 3 or 4 million. It wasn't that many in those few years. They had hoped it was going to do better, but it just was struggling. So Capcom says that they had already intended to release sort of a director's cut or what would eventually become Code Veronica X on the Dreamcast. It's just they didn't get to it. It was actually released in Japan. Japan got a Code Veronica X version on the Dreamcast.
Oh.
But by the time that they were hoping to plan and port it for US, Sega had just announced like, hey, we're out of the console business at this point. Like, we're done. We're not doing it anymore. But PS2 was just releasing. So in 2001, we got Code Veronica X, which I don't think I've made an easier purchase in my life than when Code Veronica X came out, right?
Yeah, I was so excited that it was finally on a system that I could play. But then when it came out, I think I still waited for a sale.
Oh, you did? I thought you might have got that on launch or something.
I don't think I got it on launch. Because PlayStation 2 was still the era of where I had to save my money. Like, I didn't have a job yet. And I was like, okay, other stuff is still coming out for like N64. I do know I was more focused on PlayStation 2 at that point once I had one. But it still wasn't on my radar fully. I was like, no, I'll still wait for a sale on this one.
My brother and I, we that's the thing is we pooled our money together. That's the other benefit. Is like my brother and I would just be like, oh, we want to get this game. We'll just put a few bucks together.
And
right?
I knew I could borrow it from you.
That's also true too. There's always that proxy. Yeah. So we pre-ordered this, and it was cool. You could get a little DVD that's sort of like a catch-up to the story. It's called Wesker's Report.
Oh, that I always wanted.
Yeah, we have that. I asked my brother to make sure he has it. He's like, yeah, it's buried here somewhere, but we have it. It's pretty cool. It's just like, it's narrated by Wesker. Just kind of gives you a recap of the events leading up to Code Veronica. That was available at like Electronics Boutique and Funkoland. And I'm sure now you could find it. I don't know how much it is now, but it doesn't really matter. There's some YouTube videos that cover it and probably better. Mm-hmm. That'd be just cool to have, cool to watch, because it's also on DVD, which you could play on the PS2.
I think I watched a retrospective of Resident Evil that like put every game possible into the timeline, and then it used that Wesker report in amongst it as the
that's right
as the timeline.
I think I've seen that video too. You probably passed it over to me. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah. So it was really cool, little pre-order bonus. And then the big thing with this game is that they added over 10 minutes of cutscenes that showed more Wesker's involvement, which makes sense because when he appears in the Dreamcast version, he just kind of appears. You don't really know what he's been doing up until this point, and then the ending kind of, it doesn't go into too much why he's there, and then that's what Code Veronica X does. It really expands on what he does, and there's also a bigger fight at the end with him, Claire, and Chris.
You don't even realize that he is the reason for that air raid in the Dreamcast version.
That's right.
He's the whole reason that Claire gets to escape in the first place.
Yeah.
It's his like team.
He was like
going
the first
in.
domino to fall.
Yeah.
That would set up the entire game. And
But
you don't get any of that context in Dreamcast.
They mentioned that, I think, in Code Veronica X when he first meets Claire. And that's also kind of another big moment for the series, is that like, here's this enemy that Chris probably told her about at some point, and now she's like, oh, you're who he's been talking about.
And you were supposed to be dead, pal.
Yeah.
Like, Chris told me you were dead, because I'm sure he told her that part.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we fought a giant tyrant. He was impaled. And now you've met him. A few years later. It's fine. And then the other small change that this game has, they updated the graphics. Of course, the PS2 was more powerful than Dreamcast, so it definitely looked a little bit better. I know if someone broke it down, there's probably some things that Dreamcast does better and PS2 does better, but I think overall, like, the PS2 one's better in general. And then also, the one fun change that definitely was noticeable was that Steve Burnside had a different kind of a character model.
Yeah.
They changed his hairstyle because he wasn't getting a lot of comparisons to Leonardo DiCaprio, which, I don't know. I guess that was the bad thing for Capcom. I don't know why. It was a really weird change that they updated in CVX.
It was back in the day when DiCaprio was kind of a joke for doing Titanic. He was just this, like, teen heartthrob and nothing else. He wasn't making the movies we know him for these days.
Yeah, and maybe there's like some likeness thing too, right? Maybe they were afraid that they would sue him or something.
Yeah, if we let this go any longer.
Yeah, because he didn't look that close, but you could definitely see some similarities. But they changed it in CVX nonetheless. And since CVX, this is really the version that's been ported to other consoles since then. So they ported it on the GameCube. It's actually a pretty expensive GameCube game. It's like what I have it here. It was $155 complete, or $117 for just the disc. It's one of the last. It probably came out. They probably made very few of these because they ported Resident Evil 2, 3, and Code Veronica on GameCube, and this is probably the last to get ported and also the least to be made. It's insanely expensive. But you can also play the PS2 classic version on PS5 and PS4. That's always on sale for like $4 or something like that. And then, like we mentioned earlier, Series X, you can play it now for the HD edition that was released in 2010, 2011. That was originally on 360 and PS3, but you can still get it on Xbox now. And again, that's always like $4. And it's a great way to play it, really. Like, that's probably the ideal way to play.
It looks great, even for being the 360 version of a HD remake.
Yeah, it's got widescreen support. Like that is the best way to play, really. If you have an Xbox, like it's dirt cheap all the time. I think I got it with Games with Gold or something. Oh no, I got it with the Resident Evil 6 Archives edition because that was the one that had like a couple of the original Evil games for 360. The PS3 version got like Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and Code Veronica because they had them on PSN at the time. But the 360 version, Resident Evil 6, came with just Resident Evil Code Veronica. I think that was it. Maybe nothing else.
I got it through a big Capcom sale in the Xbox store, Microsoft store, and I think I ended up getting Resident Evil 0 and the Resident Evil 1 remake along with Code Veronica. They were
always
all
on sale.
They were only like $5 to $10.
Yeah, and that's and on PC. You can't even get Code Veronica, but you get all the other Resident Evil games for dirt cheap. It's amazing how cheap Resident Evil games can be. But that's what sucks is like if you're on PC, that's your only choice, or even Switch, you're out of luck. This game has not been ported out to any of those consoles. It's really just locked to the PS5 and the Series X right now because those are the only two ways you can play it. Unless you go, of course, get a Dreamcast or a GameCube, which you probably won't because you're not going to pay $150 for this. I even know if it's worth that, to be honest with you, if you get the other versions. Or PS2, which is still really cheap on there. It's probably like $20 or less. So it sucks. Like this is one game that I know you and I are hoping they'll get remade. I think it's going to at some point.
It really needs to be the next one.
It does, because I can't think of any. Like there's no other ones I want remade. Like everything else is there. Like I would say the Resident Evil 1 remake. They did a remaster of the remake that holds up amazingly well. The only game that should be remade at this point, I don't care about 5 yet, is Code Veronica.
Well, that's what the whispers and the rumors are. They're saying like 1 could be remade and 5 could be the next one and I'm like 5 is not too recent. I mean, obviously time has been flying, but it's too modernized.
Yeah, and even it's available everywhere too. Like you can get the HD versions on all current consoles on PC. Like it's okay for that to be in its current form. But Code Veronica is it's the one that hasn't been touched. Like it got CVX and the HD port, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean you could do so much more with the way the control scheme is now, with the over the shoulder and everything. Whereas Resident Evil 5 already has that, and it also has that co-op system, which that was a thing back then. Like all games suddenly needed to be co-op. And we've gotten away from that, so it'd be kind of weird to like remake that and bring it back in.
Yeah, and I just don't think we need it right now. Like Resident Evil 5 is old. I think it was 08, 09, somewhere around there. Maybe even 07. I don't even know when it really came out. I forget. So people love it, but I don't know if people. That's probably the hard part for Capcom too, right? It's like this is probably one of the worst selling Resident Evil games, which sucks. Like I looked it up. Even Operation Raccoon City sold more than this, which is just baffling because that game was awful. And it's like maybe they're kind of apprehensive, but at the same time, there's a lot of demand for it because they've been knocking it out of the park with remakes, and this is the one that desperately needs it. So I really hope we get it. I don't know when they'll announce it, but there's been rumors that they have a lot of Resident Evil games in development, and I really, really hope that this is going to be one of them.
I was watching a YouTuber stream a different game, or maybe he was streaming the Resident Evil 4 remake, and he has a chat open and they're asking like, what do you think should be next? And he goes, well, obviously something in the numbered line. Like, who cares about Code Veronica? That's just a side story. And I'm like, God, you have the worst takes sometimes. Like
freaking Jerome Malone over here. Yeah. That's kind of speaking beyond your lengths,
Yeah.
Should we get into some speedruns, Deucy, before we get to sort of our final thoughts? And
let's be ashamed of our play while looking at these times.
So, the first time I actually beat Code Veronica, I don't know if I beat it, whatever it was, on Dreamcast or CVX. This game's pretty beefy. It's difficult. It's just lengthy by nature. Like, it'll probably take you, I looked up on how long to beat. It takes about 12 hours, roughly, just to get through the story. That's not doing anything else. Like, there's probably some other small stuff you could do right to get 100%. But for the most part, if you're just looking for a playthrough, probably going to take around 12 to 15 hours, I would say.
Yeah,
safe.
You're probably not picking up notes and things in this. Yeah, in the 12 hours.
Exactly. Yeah, because the lore is there. So we have a few speedruns, and just to disclaim here, most of these speedruns are on Code Veronica X, specifically the HD edition for the most part. It's probably just the easiest to run and maybe the best version to use. And of course, there's things like, there's like subcategories. There's like glitchless, door skip and no door skip runs. These runs that we'll call out, they do include some glitches. So I don't know what they really encompass, but it could be stuff like, clipping through a wall or something, or maybe, I don't know, using something that'll give you more items. I have no idea what the glitches are in here. I'd imagine there's not that many.
I can't think of much in this.
Yeah. So we have any %, which is sort of just get through the entire game, whatever way, whether it's using skips or whatever, what have you. This is done by Trance. They did it in 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 17 seconds, which is, again, obscene, considering we just told you it's about 12 hours for your playthrough.
But this does involve the glitches, right? Yeah.
Well, all these do. They can use some capacity glitches. I don't know.
So there must be some pretty significant glitches for...
Something heavily optimized, I would say.
Yeah.
And then we have an A rank, or it's called A rank in the US. There's different ranks when you beat the game, much like the later original games, where you have, depending on how long it takes you to beat, how many items you use, stuff like that attribute to the rank. So in the US, we have A rank as the best rank, and in Japan, they have S rank. And this is done by Boomstick 1981 in 1 hour, 40 minutes, 14 seconds. And just to sort of cover what A rank encompasses.
Only 3 more minutes for these extra things.
For A rank, yes. Exactly. And A rank requires you to give the hemostatic to Rodrigo. That's the guy in the very beginning.
Yeah.
You have to give up your lighter because you have to use it to get a lockpick. And then you lose your lighter at that point. Which lighter isn't, it's not that useful. I think there's a few instances you can use it. But obviously you could... the lockpick's more useful because you can unlock things to get more items.
I did enjoy in this game. You could hold off the bats.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah,
that was a really cool detail. And also I want to point out too the VMU on Dreamcast, the memory card.
Yeah,
that had your health status. So it would say caution. It had like the lifeline.
Oh yeah, that was so useful.
It was a great gimmick. You didn't have to go in the menu to see how badly damaged you were.
Yeah.
So A rank requires you to give you the hemostatic to Rodrigo. You cannot use aid sprays, which are those things that refill your health from basically danger to full. You can use herbs.
Oh yeah, they've had that since like Resident Evil 1.
Yeah,
that was a thing.
That's commonplace.
We're gonna put aid sprays into this game, but don't use them.
Yeah. And then the other stipulation for getting an A rank is beating it in under 4.5 hours or so, from what I read. I couldn't find anything definitive. That seemed to be the consensus, about 4.5 hours. He beat it, or they beat it, I should say. I don't know if it's a he or she. They beat it in 1 hour and 40 minutes, so it didn't matter about that 4.5 hour requirement. They could have beaten this 3 more times if they wanted to, apparently. And then there's one for knife only. I can't imagine this game with knife only. Of course
there's this.
Knife only by Silent Caster. 1 hour, 44 minutes, 20 seconds. That is probably the most impressive out of the 3 because, all 3 are impressive, but to do that with a knife, there's some really hard bosses in this game too. Like, there's some really difficult segments that I can't imagine doing with a knife.
Oh, yeah, I forgot all about that. There are some bosses that you can't just skip.
Yeah.
Like the tyrant fight in the plane.
In the back of the plane.
Yeah.
And I should call it that. We didn't get to talk about it, but some of the weapons are really cool. But the bow grenades are these green tinted ammo for your grenade launcher. We didn't know this back then, but it halves the enemy's health each time. Mm-hmm. And they're limited ones. And I was too dumb. I don't want to say too dumb even because the game didn't tell me.
I was going to say the instructions don't tell you. The strategy guide doesn't tell you.
Yeah.
The game doesn't tell you when you pick them up.
So they gas the screen up and you assume it's doing something like a poison, but it does nothing because it's just halving the enemy's health. And I later find out, especially with speedruns, that if you can hit the tyrant with like a few of those BOW rounds, which gets his HP to like, minimal, and you do something, I don't know if you throw a grenade or whatever, and that's it. That boss was such a struggle for me when I played him. Oh my god, like trying to run around in the back of an airplane, like it's a tight space, you have tank controls, and it's a time thing too. You have to damage him and then hit a button. It is really freaking difficult. And he's like one of the first bosses you fight.
Yep.
Right? So needless to say, all these speedruns are just insanely impressive. I know there's I'm sure they're dodging a lot of enemies, but there's certain fights you cannot fight. And there's certain bosses that they have just optimized beyond belief. Like Nosferatu, you have to hit the thing in his chest. I'm sure they're hitting it every single time with that sniper rifle too,
Well, not with the knife. Knife only, you gotta like somehow slash at his
heart. You gotta run
heart.
around, slash at his kneecap or something. I don't know. So those are all the speedruns we wanted to cover. none of us will ever get under 2 hours. You might get under 4.5 if you're lucky to get A rank, but you have to play through it multiple times.
Yeah.
But definitely, if you don't plan on playing through this game, which we can kind of understand because it does feel dated and it's a little bit harder to get into, and it's pretty punishing. It's not something that you can just kind of breeze through. Like there's gonna be times where you might have to restart the whole game. Go watch a playthrough or a speed run even. They're really fun to watch just because you see what they're doing and how they're breaking the game. So Deucy, final thoughts before we wrap up Resident Evil Code Veronica.
Probably. Well, I did put it on my list at what? It was like top 5, I think.
I think so, because of CVX.
Yeah, and still ranks that high with me, even with RE4 coming out and all this. And like I said, it definitely needs to be the next remaster. Like, the story is very, very key to the other games that people have been playing, 4, 5, 6 on. Like, it involved Wesker. It explained Wesker a little more, and yeah, it should be experienced by more people. This was definitely locked away on Dreamcast for the longest time, even though there's so many ways to play it now, but people sort of like shrugged it off and then never went to it.
Yeah, it sucks because it really seems like that people regard it as a spin-off and therefore maybe it's not worth playing. What really sucks, but again, like it was intended to be the sequel that it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be Resident Evil 3, and it feels like Resident Evil 3.
Yeah.
I would say even more than Resident Evil 3 does,
Resident Evil 3 at this point could be DLC for Resident Evil 2.
It could be. Like, I mean, I beat Resident Evil 3, the remake, in probably about the same amount of time it took me to beat Separate Ways on Resident Evil 4.
That's what I was thinking.
Right? Like, it was just under around 7 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
So it sucks that people kind of dismiss this game, and, it didn't help that I was on the Dreamcast, which... it always tugs at my heart because I love the Dreamcast so much, but I understand why people didn't get into it,
Yeah.
And the PS2 was the PS2, but even then, like on PS2, it sold like 1.4 million copies, so it didn't do poorly, but it didn't do as well as Capcom wanted it to. So with that, I think it's due for a remake. I think people need to experience it, and especially with the Ashford family being so closely tied to Umbrella, they have to have more of their story told or retold, And for me, I'm sure I put this in my top 5 because I have a lot of memories with it, playing with you, playing with my brother on this game. It's definitely one of my favorite Resident Evil games, and I think it's time that we get to relive the story in 2024 terms or 2025, whenever it comes out.
For some reason, when you mentioned the Ashfords again, I finally remembered the third member. It was Marcus.
Oh, Marcus. How could we forget Marcus?
The main bad guy in Zero.
Yeah. Good God. Yeah, exactly. Maybe we'll have to cover Resident Evil 0 at some point to refresh your memory on that.
That one's definitely a weird offshoot, even though it was a prequel.
Yeah, that one seemed more like a side story than anything else, but Code Veronica felt like a sequel.
You know what? I wouldn't mind that being remade too with modern stuff.
I would say, yeah, but they've released the HD version, so I'd say like that's at least reasonably playable now. But Code Veronica is just, that one is like stuck in 2000.
Yeah.
Like it feels like it's stuck in 2000, 2001. So I hope that they'll remake it, but I would love Zero. I'm really just saying I would just want them to remake all of them at some point. I'm going to buy them and play them anyway.
All of them except for 5.
Except for 5.
And then 6.
If they do 5 or 6 last, I'll still play them last.
6, don't just remake it like from the ground up.
Yeah, just it'll be the Resident Evil 6.5. Yeah. So if you have any Resident Evil Code Veronica memories you want to share with us, you can email us at legiongamingpod@gmail.com. And we post a lot on Instagram. There's always like fun stuff. Like we'll post trailers, magazine clips, all kinds of fun little bits and pieces. That's at Legion Gaming Podcast. Deucy, any final words before our friends, before we leave them off?
You have died.
Flawless. I can't even add that one. Thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic week.